If you pay attention to the news going on, you might think that we can't agree on anything, but we all agree that housing is not affordable and we need to come up with a plan. So, the bigwigs over at the Washington on the other side, they've come up with something, and I think it's quite compelling, and I'd like to talk about it with you and also explain some of the things that I think we need to keep our eye on. So, it is called the 21st Century Road to Housing Act, and it is already passed the House and the Senate. I believe it needs to go for financial reconciliation. Well, they should fine tune it, and then it gets signed by the president. It was bipartisan and overwhelmingly approved. So, we are expecting it to become law. I've taken notes because this is the first time I'm doing a deep dive into something that's got a lot of parts to it, and I don't want to forget anything. First of all, I apologize that it's probably not that interesting to watch, but hopefully you find the material just as interesting as I do. I want to start with there are a lot of moving parts that comes with the housing industry, but one of the most important parts starts at the beginning with development and with the builders themselves. And with that in mind, we know that they need to make a profit. It is their job to build, and they get to go home and have a paycheck and feed their family. And they were really left out in the wind during the financial crisis. So there is a reason why they might be a little bit more cautious about how they want to touch anything that comes to housing risk of any kind. With that in mind, I want to just start with knowing that if we don't have the right kind of inventory, we can't solve the problem. And the builders, how they have found a way to make a profit in a risky industry is by building luxurious, bigger homes, which is fantastic for the people who have luxurious, big money. But we're going to be focusing on those who need more affordable housing. And when I talk about affordable housing, around here, a median home costs 550,000 Pierce County, Kitsap County, I'm kind of rounding. And so in order to be able to afford a home around here, you typically need at least $125,000 worth of income. So we're talking about under $150,000 worth of income typically, and we can be talking about everything from rental income, rentals to actually home ownership. So I'm going to be talking about quite a few things. This will take, I expect to take about 20 minutes. Hopefully, I'm giving you information that you find valuable about what is coming and how we are trying to, we being all of us, the collective royal USA we. How are we solving it? Those luxurious homes are the easiest way for them to make a profit. And we need a lot more, what I'm going to call those affordable homes. We talked about the prices. Lots of times these are only one bathroom homes. So that's a big defining factor that separates the unders and overs in this case. So just keep that in mind. And typically when they're talking about affordable homes down in Washington, D.C., they're also like the 700 to 1100 square feet homes. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking in these generalities, just so you get an idea of what's up there in our brains when we're talking about it. So basically, how do we figure out to gap? The builder needs to be able to not go broke, and yet the average homeowner is over 40 years old before they've purchased their first time home now. So how do we figure out how to not make our children broke with their housing condition and the builder also being able to have a compelling living wage? Okay, sorry. My mailman showed up and dogs were barking and it got a little bit crazy. And hopefully I learned how to edit all that out for us. Okay. So we were diving into the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. And a big part of the section that I am most concerned with is the homes for people, not corporations. And I know you loved how that sounded too. Let's say it again: homes for people, not for corporations. I'm with you. The problem is that this is really, there's not a problem. It's just, it's not enough, in my opinion. But basically, the concept is to stop big corporations, big investors from purchasing up all the single family homes. And this was specifically put in here, this section, because President Trump spoke with a woman from Houston who applied for 20 different homes, put offers on 20 different homes, but was beat out by a cash, no inspection buyer, big investor buyer. And so she didn't have a lick of a chance. And so, anyways, that's how that got in here. Now, some things I want to say is number one, the 350 number is a pretty big number, and I'm concerned about what mid-size investors are going to do that. And again, mid-size investors in this case means two houses or two front doors of any kind to 349. So big gap, something I think we should look at even more closely maybe the next time they try to clean this up, because we'll come into that, but they already know that it's not perfect. And it's not really a ban. There's 11 provisions in this bill itself. And in this section, there are 11 carve outs, people or corporations, excuse me, that don't qualify for this stop. That's like new construction. It is foreclosures, things that like where builders build out a neighborhood for it to be rentals. That's literally its intention. The investor builds out rentals. So they're still allowed to do that. There was a provision in here that just got taken out, and that what had to do with that build out thing. They wanted to make it to where they had to sell after 7 years. And surprisingly, the National Association of Mortgage Bankers is the prevailing reason why this was struck out, amongst other things. But this was a big, compelling factor. And it's because they thought it would have a huge impact on scaring investment and would cause maybe as many 70,000 homes not to be built. And so they didn't want that. So they got rid of that. Like I said, I really like the reasoning behind this, but I think when I think of corporations that are big investors in real estate, the number's smaller than 350. So I think that it can still use some work. I'm concerned again about what some of those higher tiered, mid tiered investors might do with that gap. And are we just playing like musical chairs with that to where it'll just make it to where it's mid-sized ones who own all the real estate? And so the big size ones, 300 homes is a pretty easy way to be able to do a cash no inspection purchase. Another big carve out that I think is important for the consumers that I typically work with. I'm Sherry Evans. I'm with Better Properties. I typically work in the Kitsap Pierce in Mason County of Washington State. I've been doing so with a big smile on my face since 2001. And I happen to be a consumer award winning real estate broker as well. So if you'd like to get to know me some more, feel free to comment or DM or reach out to me in any way or check out my website or whatever. And back to this. All right. So the next thing has to do with manufactured homes. And for the most part, this isn't going to be really compelling in Washington State. And the reason why is because we have already been pretty proactive about these things, but it will impact overall the housing cost. And basically, this separate section of the bill called the Housing Supply Expansion Act removes a 50-year-old rule that required a permanent chassis on the manufactured home. This, by not having to have a permanent chassis, it will qualify for real estate mortgage loans versus having to qualify for specialty loans that have to do with manufactured homes because they were mobile homes. They're considered vehicles rather than real estate. Here in Washington State, we have a process called title elimination. It's a different way that we've already solved this problem. Real important to know. This does not mean that every manufactured home that you see on land has been title eliminated. We have to actually do the research on that. But by removing this permanent chassis ability, or excuse me, requirement, it doesn't change the safety structure of the home in any way. Matter of fact, it specifically makes sure that does not happen. The purpose of that permanent chassis was so that the manufactured home could be moved from the lot to the first land location
hang out there for a while, move to its second location, follow you to your dreams retirement or whatever. But the truth be told is that only happens 5% of the manufactured homes. Usually once they're landed for good. So that permanent chassis was costing the manufacturer between five and $15,000 in manufacturing, and nobody's even using that because it's not being moved more than once. So this would remove that and it would allow for more mortgage options in other states. We already had, like I said, that solution. I can hope that perhaps it will lower the cost of a manufactured home being brought into our state maybe by $10,000. And that's nice. Let's see. I've got some notes here because I wanted to make sure I covered everything. Oh, this is something I didn't really love. So remember that ban on 350 plus big investors can't be buying up single family homes? They can if it's a manufactured home. So it's carved out, just like that new construction we talked about, just like foreclosures we talked about. One of the other carve outs is manufactured homes. And I'm suspicious about that because, well, I can go into lots of different reasons, but I definitely want to keep my eye on how that plays out and how it might play out with our consumers. Okay, so those are the big things. If you wanna stick around, I'm gonna go over all 11. One of these things is definitely not like the other, but the first 10 are all about housing, and we've already covered, I think, 3 of them. One of the ones we haven't covered has specifically to do with vets with disabilities, so I don't wanna leave that hanging. But those were the big ones that have to do with most everybody in the affordable housing profile. So, number 1 is the opportunities for housing. So, this is just opening up some access provisions, things like the home program, income limit, allowing for new grants to go to local state governments to create more affordable housing programs. Number 2 is building more in America. This is a red tape cutting part of the legislation. Its purpose is to speed up building, but mostly this seems like it's going to help HUD assisted projects, not necessarily like local private market. The manufactured housing thing, I think we covered that pretty in depth, but basically removing that permanent chassis um, will allow for FHA loans and other loans and also could help create more affordable homes. It also has some grants to do some repairs to some communities. There is accessing the American dream, and this is specifically for buyers getting home loans that are under $100,000. So this is often for really low cost homes in low cost areas. So don't expect to see much impact here in the Kitsap Pierce area. And then there's some program reform when it comes to the disaster recovery programs, specifically with the home program as well and some rural housing service reforms. And then this is the good one for me. So here where we live, there's just veterans everywhere, and we're very grateful. And the unfortunate thing is not all veterans come home without a disability. And that disability can be very impactful in their ability to make income and also to be able to get housing because VA disability income was being counted as income when they go and apply for supportive housing. And so now that will not be part of their eligibility determination with the VASH program, that's the VA supporting housing program, which will mean that more disabled veterans will get quality housing help. And just love that. Also includes a new disclosure requirement to let them know about VASH and how they can apply for that. And also, it also has a disclosure when they go through the process of how a VA loan compares to a FHA loan and a conventional loan. My lenders already do this for all of my clients who are eligible, but it's nice to know that it's just going to be bread and butter requirement for all lenders to do. And then 7 and 8 are basically oversight, which is fantastic. They've got an annual, a monthly requirements where the HUD secretary is speaking to Congress and the FHA Mortgage Insurance Health Fund is being reporting to Congress. So that's fantastic, but they also know this is a new program. And so one of the things they want to do is actually study their own work. So they have a 2-year and a 10-year plan to do studying and figuring out ways to make this program be improved, which again, I think I've already voiced some of my opinion on that. We didn't cover this because they didn't go deep into it, but basically, they're also making a community bank provision to help strengthen community banks' role in providing affordable housing programs to the local economy, understanding that a local community bank knows more of what the local community needs. So, really think that's fantastic. And also, is lowering down some of the compliance paperwork that would be required for that. Hopefully, that doesn't cause misuse. And then we covered the homeownership for mainstream America. That is the investor restriction. And so that was number 10. Those are all 10 of the housing provisions that are in the 21st Century Road to Housing Act. There's one more section, and I'm just going to think what possibly could they have added into this act? Like, what would be missing after everything we've talked about? Were you thinking cryptocurrency? 'Cause I wasn't, but the last provision, which is weird, in my opinion, bans a Federal Reserve from creating a digital dollar through 2030. I have no idea why this is in a housing bill. Like, I just have no idea why this is in a housing bill. So, anyways, my take is basically overall, this is a pretty more good guys than bad guys kind of thing. I can see where they had to stretch things in order to get that much approval. It was like only 8 people were against it. It was pretty crazy. Oh, wait, maybe it might have been a little bit more than that, but it was overwhelmingly supported. But you can see that there was some give and take there, and maybe it can get tightened up more, like I said, as it threshes itself out through that reporting process. It is not yet a bill. It's passed the House, it's passed the Senate. It doesn't seem to have any big arguments against it, but it is not yet signed into law yet. We're expecting that to happen pretty much any day. And I hope that you found this super interesting and encouraging for our next homeowners and for our ones that need to go out on a rent and for our people who have discovered that they are in need of more assistance because of the service that they've done for you and me and my neighbors. And so I think it's covering a lot of different angles. I have no idea what the crypto thing is about. So if you do, please let me know. And then also, thank you so much for watching all this. I tried to not go into it too deeply and wear you guys out, but I love every part of this. I could do a thing on each part of this. Maybe not the accounting part. I would probably find that a little bit boring, but it's absolutely fascinating to me. And I'm super excited to see that it's very bipartisan. And I'm super excited to see that it's getting started right away, that they're not wasting time on it. If you would like me to do a deep dive into any of these, just let me know. And if you have any comments on what I could do to make this a little bit more interesting, I would be happy to hear that. I am just figuring it out. I can't even figure out lighting. I don't understand why it's that hard. It's just crazy how hard it is. And getting over I don't even put my picture on my business card, so I'm not used to looking at my face this much. So I appreciate you guys so very much. Thank you very much. Do all the things that we're supposed to ask you to do, like and share and follow and all of that stuff and comment. And I really appreciate you. Have a fantastic day.